Hello, my treasures. It's time for the next twist format to be here. And for this, we're going to have the Wonders XL rule set. This means we can run up to 40 cards within a single deck, and our HP pools will match the card pool, much like the old Renethal. So if you're a fan of slower paced Hearthstone decks, this might be a great format for you. The majority of the decks in this video will have more than 30 cards. I know that might make them a little less consistent since draw power isn't as consistent as is in modern Hearthstone, but I wanted to see if we could make most out of this. These decks are going to be mainly wacky combos and using cards that I really wanted to use in the Wonder format that I just didn't get the chance to. So let's begin. For Druid, we're going to have Malygos, Jade, Druid. The idea essentially is to use Jade to overwhelm our opponent, so they waste their resources on that. Then we're going to wombo combo our opponents in combination of using Aviana, Kun, Malygos, and a bunch of other ways to do direct damage to our opponent's face. And while you might not always win with the Malygos combo, you should be able to still win through the Jade, since we are using some of the really good choose one support that we have access to in this format. The next deck is going to be Yogg-Saron Hunter, except with 40 cards instead of 30. This is very similar to my Barnes list. However, instead of not having to run any minions at all, we can run some very powerful cards that did get a recent nerf. However, this should still allow us to feed into Yogg and survive long enough in order to slam down Yogg to overwhelm our opponents with a bunch of random cast spells. Are you always going to win games off of Yogg? Probably not. Are you going to have a lot of fun trying this deck out? Hell yeah, you are. So let's get on to the next deck, which is going to be Mage, the other Yogg deck that I made, except this is going to be a Yogg Reno Mage list, where the basic idea behind this deck is we're going to build up Yogg throughout the entire game using a bunch of the random generation that Mage has access to. We also are going to be using things like Reno Jackson in order to survive until we can get into late game, and we're also going to be using things like Ink Master Solia so we can get Pyroblast for free and hopefully finish off our opponent with that. Now let's get on to the next list, which is going to be Extra Large Secret Paladin. This was a list that was in the original video for Wonders. However, we extended it out to a 40 card list because we can use a lot more of the Death Rattle support and secret support that we have access to in this format. This will allow us to use N'Zoth as a big finisher and also use things like Mysterious Challenger in order to put out way more secrets than the previous list could ever do. Now let's get onto the Priest deck, which is going to be Malygos Velen Priest. The idea behind this is if you've never seen Velen, he doubles the healing and damage done by your spells and hero power. This allows him with 2 copies of Mind Blast to do 20 damage to your opponent's face. However, if you have ways to increase your spell damage, such as Malygos, that can easily be discounted through things like Sordomi, Emperor Thorson, or Future Emissary, which will allow you to then use Brian's Bronzebeard as a way to discount even further. Overall, you're not always going to be able to use Malygos in this list to OTK. However, it does act as an additional copy of Velen within a 40 card list, thus helping you increase the consistency factor of this deck by a little bit. Basically, you have 2 ways to actually pull off this combo if you can get the discounts on the right cards. Now let's get on to the next deck. The next deck, which is going to be Mimiron Head Rogue. If you've never seen Mimiron's Head, if you have at least 3 mechs on board, destroy them all at the beginning of your turn to summon a Voltron, which has Mega Wind Fury, allowing him to attack 4 times instead of 2, and has Charge. So the way we are going to be protecting our minions within this deck is Conceal. Conceal will allow us to protect whatever mechs we slam down, and the mechs that we are going to be running in the deck have either a way to generate an additional mech or have a way to protect themselves, such as a Noyatron. This deck was something that I tried out in the last Wonders format. However, it felt like it was a little bit too weak on HP wise. However, because Rogue does have a lot of ways to draw through your deck, a 40 card list doesn't actually hurt the consistency factor of the combo, but it does give you access to more HP, which will allow you to pull off the combo more consistently. Now let's get onto the next list, which is going to be Charge Shaman, which is going to be centered around Alkir, the Winds of Time. This card will allow you to give yourself Wind Fury on any type of weapon, so you can use things like Spirit's Claws in combination with a spell damaging minion in order to have +3 attack there. And then you also have Rock Biter Weapon in order to buff up your attack even further. And then you also gain the +2 attack from the hero power itself. Outside of this, you're also going to be able to draw through a bunch of your charge minions off of this single card. That's allowing you to either finish your opponent off by your own Wind Fury or your minions' charges. Now let's get onto the Warlock deck, which is going to be Handlock. This is going to be centered around the fact that we have access to all 3 of the classic Hearthstone giants in combination with a bigger HP pool and a bigger card pool. That's allowing us to run even more control tools early game until we can overwhelm our opponent with these huge minions. Leroy Jenkins also acts as a huge finisher in combination with Power Overwhelming if you need to do a bunch of damage to your opponent's face really quickly. Now let's get onto the final deck, which is going to be another Mimiron head deck. This was the other variant that I had been testing out for the previous Wonder format. However, we have a little bit of additional space to allow us to run even more draw power than the previous version I had. The idea behind this is we're going to use things like Bolster and Hobart Grapple Hammer in order to buff up our really cheap mechs that also have Taunt. That will allow us to then protect them with Mimiron's head in order to summon out the big minion and just wail on our opponent's face. There is actually one other inclusion we should probably add, which is Inner Rage. Inner Rage will allow us to buff up Mimiron by 4 additional attack, thus allowing us to OTK our opponent without having to rely on some type of mana cheat. If you can't tell, I really want to make Mimiron's head work before he rotates out of the twist formats. Now let me know down below which one of these decks you're most looking forward to using. I know they're not all 40 card lists. However, by hopefully being allowed to choose where we want to have our deck's maximum at, we can get full advantage out of the additional HP pool and not hurt the consistency of a lot of these decks. And like always, if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, bye bye.